Hi everyone. Today I'd like to introduce you a beautiful person who has been a managing director for Accenture long back and been vice president for Bell Company, and right now she's chief executive coach for Leaderly International and founding president of her own firm, and it is registered in Canada and also accessible to US clients as. And this is a brief account that I am giving. I would like to hear from Marisa herself, Marisa Murray, more about her and her personal journey in her growth. Now, thank you. Hi, Marisa.
Hi,
How are you?
I'm great, Angelina. How are you?
I'm super good. Thank you. I'd like to hear from you. Who are you? Who you have been? First, that.
Sure. So I love that this is about personal growth because I often get asked questions about sort of my career growth. And I think that our career growth is interesting, but ultimately our career growth only happens with the backbone of our personal growth. And so if I just think about like who was I before my most recent sort of conscious shift, and who am I now? I think that kind of growing up, I was always very focused on doing well by other people's measures. So doing well by my teachers first, and then doing well by my parents, then doing well by my bosses, doing well by all the measures, external measures of what I sort of understood a good life was. Mm-hmm. And that enabled a lot of what I would say personal growth, but on the competencies, so on the skill sets that I grew. But it didn't really fully teach me really who I was or what impact I wanted to make in the world. It was really just responding to the world's asks and finding my way to deliver on those asks to the best of my ability. And I think the last, I'd call it 5 years, have been really focused on coming out of other people's definitions of what I might be good at and finding my own way around where I know I have sort of secret talents that I want to bloom and grow and develop, and demonstrating those, building those, even though there's very little recognition for them on the outside at the beginning. Because at the beginning, you're not, for my example would be, I was very good at working for other people, but I was not known for being able to create a company, for instance. Or I was very good at memorizing and learning information, but I wasn't known for creating my own information and thought capital and tools and research and writing, etc. And so all of these shifts required me to really reflect on how do I kind of develop this from the inside out without people from the outside guiding me and telling me what to do. And that's been an incredible personal growth journey for me.
Developing from inside out, if you just consider that, how you could develop your passion in line with this?
Yeah, so I guess I never even had this idea of there being an inside out or outside in idea. But I've come to think about it as what do I uniquely bring? It's actually looking sometimes at what is actually just really easy for me, because we spend a lot of time developing skills that are actually really hard for us because we realize like, oh, I'm not good at that. I need to learn how to do that. And sometimes we do that so much that we forget what is easy for us is really also our talents. So just to give you a concrete example, I always find a way to simplify complex things. Like I'll read a whole bunch of information and it'll be very, very complex. And my brain will very quickly come up with an idea of, oh, that's just like a different analogy or metaphor. I'm very fast. My brain is very fast at finding a simple way for me to understand something. And that's a skill I think I've had since I was a kid. And I used it to study and I used it to help me remember things. But that is something that I never used in work, really, very, very deliberately. And so now what I find, though, is that little thing, that little spark of, oh, I see how this can be described in a simple way, is hugely important to my clients and to my speaking, because it's this way of teaching things and explaining things that comes super easily and natural, but that doesn't come naturally to everybody else. So that's an example of even going back to things that as a kid you knew you did, or something that just feels like play, or something that feels really easy. Those are the things that kind of are inside of you, and then you find a way to bring them into the world, right?
To present this to the world, how do you keep yourself fit physically?
Yeah, no, absolutely. There is something really interesting about this shift from surviving the busyness, so
Mm-hmm.
just sort of being fit enough to survive the busyness of a life, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Versus taking control of pieces, blocks of your time, so that you can take good care of yourself, so that when you are doing work, it's your best work. And there's a big difference between doing work, and doing your best work. And for me, the difference between doing just work, I can do work when I'm tired, I can do work when I'm grumpy, I can do work, I can get work done, but that is never my best work. So you can get throughput, but you won't actually get exponential value, right? Unless you kind of turn it around and you say, I need to take care of myself. I need these blocks of time to take really good care of myself, so that when I take myself to work, I'm doing my best work, as opposed to just trying to rush around and get to work, So it really is a shift. And for me, things like just really thinking about the basics, like, did I sleep enough? Am I eating healthy food? Like, I had to start at one point asking myself, is this fuel for my best work, or am I just throwing anything in my mouth to keep
Dump
me
it.
alive, right? Is this survival, or is this fuel for my best work?
Mm-hmm.
Taking time for meditation and stillness, taking time to just be still and see what insights could come from that stillness. Often my best ideas come when I'm just allowing myself to sort of be still. So yeah, and having enough play and fun and interesting things in your life that help you be really energized and engaged when you work. So you're absolutely right. This whole notion of, how are you preparing yourself? How are you fit for your best work? It's a different question if you think about it from what equips me to do my best work versus what equips me just to do work, because the recipe is very different.
Of the roles that you're playing now, different roles, how do you strike a balance among them?
You mean
The speaker role, coach
yeah,
role.
yeah, for sure. And then like you can add like mother and wife and friend and daughter and all that. We all have so
Different
many
roles.
hats,
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that happened to me was I used to keep these hats very separate before. I used to keep my mother hat separate and my wife hat separate and my work hat separate. And I sort of had all these separate versions of myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that because I felt like I had to. I felt like I had to sort of reserve a certain version of me for this, that, or the other. But also the environment sometimes create a dynamic where we feel like we have to play a role because everyone expects us to play the role a certain way. And so we assume all these different characters. And then I started trying to reserve time for all these different characters, but it all blew up. Like that doesn't work. It doesn't, I couldn't, I don't stop being a mom when I'm focused at work. If my phone rings and it's my kids in the middle of speech, it's still my kids in the middle of the speech. There are these divisions are sort of made up divisions in our head, right? The reality is we are one integrated whole being on this planet. And so another shift that was important to me is that I realized that I had to stop trying to segment all these things and really just look at what are all the components and how do I live into those components every day? Because if the components are important enough to kind of be in my life, then I need to live in them every day instead of trying to live in things temporarily or just in certain periods. So I like to say, if it's not a daily habit, like it's not going to happen, right? So things that are important to us around, being a team leader, meeting with our teams, spending quality time with, with our kids or our spouse, or, all those kinds of things, you have to find a way to get them in your daily or weekly routine. Otherwise, they don't happen. They just, months and months go by and they don't happen, right? So I feel like the answer for me is very much, to look at me as a whole person and look at these roles and understand, how do I make time for all the important ones in my daily and weekly routines? And then also allow myself to be a bit more integrated than I used to be before, to show more of myself in, to show more of myself in my work and show more of my work in my home. Allow there to be a little bit more flexibility so that I can be one person most of the time.
With this integrated Marisa.
Yes.
With this integrated Marisa, what do you want to accomplish?
Well, so when I get really grounded and happy, it's when I'm really focused on a very simple aspiration, which is to contribute interesting and important, useful information to the world. And that aspiration carries with it, even to my kids. I mean, what do I want to do as a parent? I want to impart useful and valuable information to my boys, so that they grow into amazing people and have amazing lives. And that it supports me in terms of my clients. It also supports me in terms of sort of what do I need to feed myself from an information perspective to keep current and keep intellectually stimulating myself to continue to nurture these ideas that will contribute to, a positive impact. And so when I get really grounded, it's very, very focused in, what can I uniquely contribute to some positive impact? And when I start from that place, no matter what role I'm playing, I'm very fulfilled and I'm very energetic and I'm very healthy. Now, I fall off that horse though all the time. I get into, I start to be, afraid of criticism, or maybe people won't like it, or maybe people won't agree, or maybe people will think it's not smart enough or useful or whatever. So it's not like I don't fall off that horse. I absolutely fall off that horse, where I start to get distracted by sort of criticisms that could slow me down in maximizing my contribution. But then when I come back to, I'm just doing my best to contribute valuable information and make a positive impact in others in my lives. I'm back to the right space for my work and for my life.
So when you talk about this contribution and impact, what do you think should this contribution and impact have certain set of habits that you usually follow?
Yeah. Well, I guess I used to, because I was so frail in my creative process or in my process for, I had a tendency to want to shun criticism, shun counter opinions. Like I had to kind of hide. It was like I was like a little small plant, and I didn't want to go out into the winter world where people would be harsh on me. And I wanted to sort of keep it really tight and little until I felt like it would grow.
Yeah.
And that's a bad habit, because we can spend a long time, quietly protecting this little seedling or this little, but what it really needs to grow is it needs to, hear other people's opinions, listen to other ideas, sharpen it, grow it, challenge it. And so one of the habits that I continue to, work on is to put things out in the world before they feel ready, before they feel done, before they feel safe, before they feel robust enough to and to invite and be able to listen to others and have others contribute to my ideas or challenge my ideas without me feeling like a failure, without me feeling like I've done something wrong or I'm not smart or I'm not, not capable. Like sort of separating those two things. And so I think the habit of putting things out there and experimenting and listening to others and letting people nudge you a little bit, not throw you off your game, but nudge you a little bit so that you can continue to experiment and refine. It's challenging because it can be hurtful, but also it can be confusing because you'll get different opinions from different people that are sometimes opposite. So it can be very confusing. But ultimately, I think that with a large number of inputs, the patterns begin to reconcile themselves. So if you just put it out there and then you get one negative piece of feedback and then you take it away and you never show it to anybody else, then you don't learn, right? But if you leave it out there and you listen and then you kind of twist and then you hear it's almost like you're getting that guidance of your idea taking shape and growing and your impact getting better and better and better. And so for me, a big habit is to try to put things out before they're ready, to listen without judgment, to not be hurt by that judgment, and to stay in the game, to just keep working it until I feel like I have the appropriate guidance and I'm on the right track.
What is success to you?
Ooh, good question. I have goals across like 16 categories. So,
Awesome.
so I used to have a very unhealthy definition of success, I would say, and it wasn't a deliberate definition. It was just sort of something that I felt I had adopted from Western culture, which was like, how much money do you have and how high of a position do you have was a big part of my success criteria. In addition to, do I have a healthy family and do I have a good relationship? Those, they're kind of those big buckets. And what I figured out is that those big buckets are fueled by all these other things, like how clear am I on my own vision? How able am I to manage my emotions? How good am I in terms of maintaining my health and vitality? How connected I am and networked am I with other people that help me? So there's like all these other categories that, how much do I allow time for creativity in my life? All these categories support those big blocks. And so chasing those big blocks sort of as, the be all and end all, it's almost like trying to get a cause without the effect, right? It's trying to get the outcome without having all the ingredients for that outcome. And I ended up blowing up, kind of these goals across these categories because I saw how supported they were to sort of an overarching and complete life. So anyway, I think I'm a little crazy in how much I need to kind of keep myself on track. I need to sort of be very conscious about all of these things. There's people that I know that are intuitively just very conscious about it, but I have to be pretty deliberate and sort of check myself around these different areas, especially things like exercise and nutrition, and also just my emotional well-being and time with family and time with friends and time nurturing relationships and things like that. I have to be very deliberate about.
So what you define is all these things contribute to your success.
Yeah, absolutely. Ultimately what ends up being success is that I know I'm on the right track when I'm happy. So like there's this whole there's this piece of why did I want to be successful financially, successful with a family, successful, is because I believed it would make me happy. Then I discovered, well, in order to even be successful at those, I have to be good at a whole bunch of other things. But when it all boils down to everything, you're on the right track when you feel that every day you're elevating. The dramas are less intense. I think I used to live a life where I would be like highs and lows. I'd have these really high highs and I'd have these really low lows and then I'd have a really high high. And I was just kind of on this roller coaster. And now what I feel like is I'm less attached to the drama. I'm more attached to the journey. And I'm just trying to get better and better and better every day, and better on any capacity that I feel is in line with me being happier.
Okay, happier. So, if you have to advise someone, say for example, me only.
Okay, sure.
So, what do you advise for being happy?
Yeah. Well, it is a lot of self-identification of the meaning in what you're doing,
Mhm.
and keeping that so close and clear to you so that it drives your motivation.
So, if
Because
I
I think,
understand,
yeah.
if I understand that, it is clarity and awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. That's beautifully said. Yeah, I love that. So it's, it is that whole notion of, um, you know, whatever project it is. It's funny. This morning, my son told me, my youngest son looked at his schedule for the day,
Mhm.
and he said, I have the worst day. I hate every class today. I don't like my classes today, because he has different classes. And then he said, is being a grown up a lot more fun than being a kid? Like, is having a job way better than being in school?
Mhm.
And he
And
said,
we think the
because,
otherwise.
and he said, because, in your real life, when you're working, you get to pick everything you want to do, right? But I can't pick. I have to go to these courses. And, I said to him, the funny thing is that, yes, when you're grown up, you can pick more things. But what you find is that you have to bring happiness to everything, even that you pick. And if you neglect to bring the energy, the meaning to what you do, everything beautiful can become terrible, and everything terrible can become beautiful. I mean, and we can run into the habit, I think, of thinking that the content is either fun or not fun, or the work is either fun or not fun. And what I've figured out is that what's fun or not fun is the meaning you put to it. And if it's meaningful to you, and there are things that you can make meaningful that are not, easily made meaningful, but if you do the effort and you attach to what's meaningful about this, then motivation comes, energy comes, all that stuff comes. So what I advise people to do is, I always say, if you have to do something, then you have to find a way to like it.
Have to find a way to like it. Yeah, got
Yes.
it.
They have to stay together. And people say, but I have to do it, but I don't like it. I'm like, well, if you have to do it, you have to find a way to like it. Otherwise, you're just manufacturing suffering. Otherwise, you're just finding a way to be miserable. And we can fill a life. We can fill a life full of things we have to do. So if we can't find a way to like them, then you're not going to be happy. You're never going to be happy. So what I told my son is, in every course today, find a way to find the fun. I said, find the creative angle, find the little piece of meaning, find where there's a nugget. And he said, well, some things are not fun. I like to create, and math, I just have to repeat. I said, well, that's practice. That's just muscle building. Like, you have to find the meaning in every activity. And I find that when you do that, you can get yourself into a really nice, what's often called a flow state, no matter what you're doing. No matter what you're doing.
One piece of advice about socializing and intention behind socializing.
Oh, okay. I think it's interesting when it comes to, relationships in general. I like to say that you have no chance of achieving the success you desire on your own. And if you think you can, you're not aiming high enough.
Mhm.
So this notion of, we all help each other. We all raise up each other. We're a collaborative species. We're pack animals, right? We work in packs. Mm-hmm. And so the importance of our social networks, are really enablers to elevate us or to deplete us. And so what we really want to do when we're engaging in developing relationships and investing in relationships is, we want to figure out, how can this relationship elevate both me and the other person? How can they bring out my higher self? How can I bring out their higher self? And what does those two pieces of higher self enable us to do in the world, or enable us to position to have done in the world, and that kind of thing. So, for me, when I'm engaging with other people, I'm trying to find their highest self. And people don't always show it to you. People were just sort of, we're exchanging small talk, or we're talking about our problems. They're not always showing you their desires, their whispers, their unique talents, their enthusiasm, and all that kind of stuff. And I think when we're socializing, we have to, we all feel great if we have the opportunity to get into that space. But it's space it's delicate, and it has to be nurtured. And we do get into habits with different people where we're not in that space where we're looking to really elevate each other. And that's what I think is really beautiful about the best times of relationships and socializing, is when you're there not to credentialize yourself and make yourself and make yourself feel important, not to just exchange information about what you did that day, but to really figure out, what can you uniquely bring to this relationship, and what can that person uniquely ignite in you. And so that we're leaving each conversation feeling elevated and excited and bigger than when we started.
Yeah, I love this. I love this. To bring excitement in other person while making relationship.
Yeah.
That's good. Thank you. Okay. My final question. If you are to tell the world something from within you, what would that be? And in aspect of inspiration.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's funny because it's very simple. When I think about, I just feel like we're all in this together. Like we act like we're all very separate, and we're all on our individual journeys, and we're all sort of, all hustling in our own lane. And I think that that's not true. I think we're all helping each other. We're all elevating each other. We're all connected. We're all going through a very similar journey and experience. And so, for me, it's, know that you're not alone. Know that we're all in this together, and know that your achievement is going to bolster my achievement, and my achievement is going to bolster your achievement. This whole notion of getting rid of this idea of scarcity and this idea of competition, and getting into this, we all elevate and grow each other. And there's abundant things on the other side in terms of our ability to achieve great things together. So I guess that would be my thing. It's my one message is, we're in this together, and we are really more alike than dissimilar. And we need to be champions for each other and cheerleaders for each other.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for cheerleading me. Yeah. Thank you so much, Marisa, for this wonderful conversation.